It is Sunday, December 15, and I am here with Sarah Breskman Cosme, and we are going to be talking about her latest book, A Hypnotist's Journey to Avalon. Sarah's the author of 4 books. She has been practicing quantum healing hypnosis technique for a number of years, has had hundreds of clients, and she has regressed her clients so that they can get past life memories about Atlantis, ancient Egypt, ancient mysteries, and also Avalon. So welcome, Sarah, to Exopolitics Today.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's so beautiful here today.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you here, and congratulations on the new book, A Hypnotist's Journey to Avalon.
Thank you
Always
so
a
much.
nice accomplishment.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Thank you so much.
So how long were you working on this big book for?
Oh, 2 years. It took 2 years. And it seemed like before then, most of my books wrote themselves in a year. But there was just so much material in this book. And, you know, I never know what the higher self is going to basically write through my clients until it happens. And there's just so many different people that I had to regress that just kept adding information to it. And then my mom is my editor, believe it or not. She is an editor. And we stumbled upon an issue as we were editing through, after chapter 4, she started to see light in the corners of her eyes. She started being activated from working on the book with me. At least that's what I thought. So she went and had her vision checked, and her doctors were really scared, and they told her she might be, her retinas might be detaching. If you see light out of the corner of your eyes, that might not be a good thing. So she had her eyes checked, and her eyes are completely fine. And then she realized she was seeing fairies. So because she was so activated and the book was activating her so much, we had to take our time because this was kind of new to her. And now it's really wonderful to watch my mom really awaken and start to regain all these gifts that she thought she didn't even know she had before.
Right, so I guess in her peripheral vision, she gets the lights and realizes that these are beings that are fairies. And I know you talk about fairies in this book, so why don't you tell us, what are fairies?
Sure. Oh my gosh. So fairies seem to be like these beings that were created, for the most part, most of these fairies seem to be beings that were created from the earth. So if you think about the earth or Mother Gaia producing elements, first there were elements, and these elements turned into beings. There's always a natural progression of everything. Even like your thoughts are so powerful. So the earth's creation, the earth itself birthed these creatures. And because they don't consider themselves to be from somewhere else, they consider themselves to be ancient. And I never knew how beneficial it could be to work with fairies. I had no idea. But as we start to evolve our consciousness, we're being asked more and more to start to develop these relationships. But here's the thing, they can be very, very tricky. And if you come and you approach this group with bad intentions, or you're kind of abusing the earth, then you don't want to start working with them, because they might start to trick you and play games on you, apparently, is what I've learned through all these hypnosis subjects. But if you come at it through a positive way of being, and come loving, opening your heart and wanting to develop a relationship with these beings, then it can be very, very beneficial to you and your spiritual growth, because fairies are, like I said, are ancient, and they can actually bless you and help you along your journey. And what's really fascinating to me is I've asked multiple clients under hypnosis, well, if fairies kind of are more advanced in some ways, and most of the time live in another realm that's close to our earth realm, but they live most of the time in another realm, why would they come into this realm? Why would they want to work with humans? And what I've learned is that there's a lot of growth to be had. The fairies actually evolve their own soul if they work with humans. And there's more growth on this earth plane for them. And that's one of the reasons why fairies choose to come work with us and why they do come into this realm. And another thing that I started to learn that was really interesting is about fairy dust. I just thought fairy dust was something in the myths or like in fairy tales, but what it seems that fairy dust actually is because these fairy creatures are like elementals. When they get together, the elements within them spark. And when they are joyous, it creates a spark and a dust. And when humans start to work with these fairy creatures, if the human asks to work with them and receive blessings from them, they will sprinkle this fairy dust on the human. And they'll start to all of a sudden feel so good and feel like joyous and happy. And so it's amazing to know what all this is. I mean, I just feel like I'm learning so much about the nature of our reality and all these amazing things that are at our fingertips if we choose to find them.
So you put your clients into a hypnotic state and they bring up past life memories where they remember interacting or seeing these fairies, or do you get information from your clients who are seeing fairies today?
Both. So many of my clients saw fairies when they were a child and they don't remember this until they're being regressed. And then they realize that they actually had a lot of interaction with fairies. They just didn't really believe it, so to speak, or they push those memories away. And the reason why fairies oftentimes interact with children is because children are at the right vibration to work with fairies. They're joyous. Almost every being or higher vibration loves to work with people or children when they're joyous or playing in that state of play. So if you really want to accelerate your growth spiritually, if you can be in a state of play more, then you will start to attract more benevolent beings that would want to work with you. But children are in that beautiful state of play. And many times they come across fairies, and some just we're told not to believe it, or some, push those memories away or even suppress them.
Okay, so some people may have interacted with fairies as children, but through the normal traumatic experiences they have in life, they forget about it, bury it in the unconscious, and then they do a QHHT session and that all comes out.
Yes, and some people, even in their adult life, see fairies and they don't even realize what they're seeing, because sometimes they show up as sparks of light. So sometimes you might see them in the corners of your eyes, like my mom started seeing them. So they might come as like even little circles in the corners of their eyes, or little sparks, or you might just feel really, really happy or in a presence of something really like joyous and even laughing when you go into the forest or something like that.
So you mentioned that these fairies are elementals. So what does that mean? I mean, are we talking about a kind of a non-human intelligence? Are we talking about something? Is it like a crypto-terrestrial? I mean, what exactly is a fairy in terms of its, where it fits into the kind of whole gradation of human and extraterrestrial and inner earth civilizations and beings?
So the way it all fits in is, before this whole experiment or 3D realm was started, we all existed in a sense, like our consciousness, the one of this realm, of this earth realm, existed in more of like an eighth density. So all the beings during that time were like almost like fairy creatures. Most of the fairies have not chosen to evolve their shape. So the way they are now is the way they have been. They are very ancient. But during this time, when they were setting up this 3D experience, there were all different types of creatures, and they could plan out a 3D experience. So they could see almost like an element to that experiment where they could see into what it would be like if they had a 3D experience. They could see it, so to speak, but it was not that way in the beginning of this whole thing, this time around. And what happened was Earth itself decided that she wanted to be part of this experience, this experiment. So then that led to beings that started to come that were part of this ascension program. So there's like an ascension program that we are all part of on the Earth. And this is what my clients see when they go into these type of memories. They'll see that on the other side, whenever they have died, you can see all of this very clearly. And so Earth itself wanted to be part of this ascension program, calling in these other beings that understood the program. So it's like a template of ascension. Other Earth-like planets have completed this ascension program. So it's almost like these other Earth-like planets are on like a rung of a ladder. So you go up in the density and the vibration. This isn't the first one and it won't be the last. But anyway, so part of the program involved this being that many of my clients called Thoth or 3. Thoth came here as the architect of this ascension program and put down the pyramids. So the pyramids connect to this grid system. The pyramids are all over this earth plane and form a Merkaba shape. Each person also has a Merkaba light body shape as well. They have like 2 triangles, one above and below. And so does the whole earth. And it's formed, this Merkaba is formed with pyramids and grid systems. Now the grid systems were powered by gold, and the grid systems would attract these negative entities. The negative entities were needed in this program because in order for this program of ascension to actually complete itself and for the planet and all the beings on the ascension program, they need the negativity in order to complete this whole process. So negativity was, in a sense, called in through the use of the pyramids, the grid, the false grid, but this is all meant to be. So essentially, it will lead us in this growth and this evolution to where we go back to where we were before we did this whole experiment. So we're the earth and all the consciousness and the souls are going up in their vibration, and each level that they go through, it's almost, you've heard the game being talked about. You go up and up in the density and you become lighter and lighter. Even the souls on the other side, when they remember going back to the other side, they realize that the more they've worked on their consciousness and evolved their soul, the lighter their soul becomes, actually. So there is a motivation. Everybody wants to. The souls want to evolve their souls and become lighter in their frequency. And I hope it wasn't too confusing how I explain this, but that's essentially what they've told me.
Okay. So Avalon, is Avalon a place or is it a frequency state of mind?
So it seems to be both. And it's almost like Avalon has many different layers to it. When I was working on this book, at first I just thought it was the UK. I thought it was a region. But then it became really obvious that it was like a frequency. Avalon is like in our hearts. Avalon is like this joyous frequency of where we all started, in a sense. So we all started from this beautiful place in our consciousness when we were all these higher consciousness beings. And then there's also an Avalon in the cosmos. So it's like Avalon is not just one place, but there was also a place that was called Avalon where King Arthur resided, and where the women of Avalon did all these magical practices. So there's many different places that people in their memories consider Avalon, and this frequency is just one of them.
Okay, interesting. I had interviewed someone, a Jalila Star, and she describes something like Avalon. She calls it Avalon. And she says that that was the home world of the Lyrans, or the royal house of Lyra, before they had to flee that star system, and then they went to the Pleiades and they re-established the house of Avalon, or Avalon, similar to that word, if I'm not pronouncing it correctly as she did. And then they came here and they've been inspiring humanity. So
Yes.
I'm wondering if there's a connection between this kind of myth of Avalon, or the frequency of Avalon in England or to the planet, with this kind of this royal house of Avalon that come from another world.
Yes, in people's memories, they do remember. That's so interesting and fascinating. That's very confirming to what my clients have received. And these, they seem to be like feline beings. I don't
Exactly, yes.
And they do seem to be kind of, well, there was like this war, and a lot of them fled, and a lot of these souls are, are here now. And many people have these deep-seated memories in their consciousness about that time. And they do call that place Avion.
That's the pronunciation. Yeah, Avion. That's what she was saying. Thank you. You know it better than I do.
I don't know. This is just what people remember. And actually,
Right.
many people remember this. And those feline beings seem to be watching from afar, and they're very, very powerful. And what's interesting in people's memories are that they seem to be like cats. They're not really humanoid. And they talk about how they had to practice standing on two legs, that they used to stand on four, but after practice, they would learn to stand upright. It was really interesting. And they're so incredibly powerful, like probably one of the most powerful groups that I've heard of.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that royal house of Avion is something you've come across with your clients. That matches with the Jalila Star information, which I found very intriguing. So in this book, you also talk about the red crystals, and that's interesting because that's a continuity with your first book, A Hypnotist's Journey to Atlantis. So you want to just give a recap on the importance of the red crystals in that first book, and what it means for, I think, Christy to be talking about them in this new book?
So interesting to me. It's just such a wild ride for me. But in my book, A Hypnotist's Journey to Atlantis, which is censored, by the way, on Amazon, you can't buy that book anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah. Hopefully I will get it back at some point. But in my book, A Hypnotist's Journey to Atlantis, which I'm working on trying to release somehow, my clients would talk about the red crystals. They were super powerful crystals that were used in these other realms. So many people in the Pleiadian star systems would remember that they would use these crystals to create another realm. They would use their mind and these crystals to create this other realm where it would evolve their consciousness. And every single member of this society had to go into this realm at least once. And when they would do that, it would download them with the secrets of the universe. And then they would understand that we are just all one being in a sense, and that this is a game, and we're here to evolve our consciousness. And it would take away any insecurity you ever had, because you would realize how powerful and loved you are. So everyone had to go in there at least once. And that's how they kept their society as non-violent. So these crystals were very important, and Earth was full of these crystals. And some of these crystals were so extremely powerful that now they've been completely hidden from us. So these crystals were used in ancient times in Atlantis. They were used in Lemuria. They were used. And my client, especially Jen, kept talking about these powerful crystals, which was so interesting because in Christie's session, she remembered that in her family in Wales, they had access to some of these red crystals, that they had found them after the flood. So it was just interesting that these crystals kept making a comeback and that they just kept coming back through my clients and their memories. But these crystals, like I said, have had to have been taken away. And what was so fascinating is that as I'm working on this book, I had clients that started coming in, remembering being the Knights Templar or remembering working with the Knights Templar. And I just didn't know that these were so connected, but they were, because the Templars had understood about these crystals and the Templars had taken them and hidden them away. And they first hid them. It was interesting to see that they came from Atlantis. Some of them came from Atlantis or Lemuria, went into Egypt, were hidden in Egypt, then were hidden within the some of the royal families and passed off as royal jewels, and then taken, and now they're hidden on this island in Nova Scotia, miles deep underneath the ground. So it's really just interesting how all these different people connect, bringing this story to life. And I had no idea that all this needed to come out now.
Mm-hmm. So the crystals these red crystals have the power also to heal and to I guess, help a person to achieve their highest potential.
They do. The crystals have the power to heal, and the crystals also have the power to create a realm. They are so incredibly powerful. And the problem is, and the reason why humans can't really use them very well right now, unless they're very advanced, is because you can destroy civilizations. The human being in its template is so incredibly powerful that it is actually just like, it's so powerful that it has to be monitored and watched, and we slowly retrieve our power, because if we all had so much power not knowing what to do with our power, it might be detrimental, so to speak, and to use these crystals on top of it. But according to my clients, there's actually a red crystal, one of these powerful red crystals that is hidden in the Great Pyramid. And so when people go into the Great Pyramid, the crystal has a consciousness and a personality. And even if there's tons of people in there, it will work with that person, a person that's working on themselves spiritually. So there's nothing you need to do when you go into a place like the Great Pyramid. This crystal is working with them. And it's working with them, trying to advance them in whatever way that they choose, in whatever way that works with that red crystal. But eventually this crystal will light up. And then when this crystal lights up, it will light up the whole entire Merkaba and grid system on the earth. And when that happens, it will light up every Merkaba within the human. And we will then evolve into the next level of our density.
Mm-hmm. Well, you talk about Wales, and you mentioned how that was once a land where there were these wise, powerful dragons, and that people interacted with them. So, yeah, I'd like you to talk about that, and maybe is there a connection between the red crystals and the dragons? You know, we know the popular films talking about, you know, the dragon riders and so forth. So if someone had one of these red crystals, would that have somehow activated them, empowered them to be able to like establish a bond with a dragon to like ride it? I mean, is that even possible?
That's such a great question. You know, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that working with dragons has been really hidden from our knowledge. And that's because working with dragons can really be very powerful for someone to do something like that. That when I was receiving all this information, Merlin came in, or, you know, the being I thought was Merlin, or at least from one of my clients under hypnosis, and said that he was exploring the dragon realms and that dragons were such wise beings. And in Wales, my client remembered that the coat of arms had a dragon on it. And the reason was because they were so revered, that they used to be very wise teachers. But there was a reason why they weren't in our basically reality anymore. And that was because they were killed, or they were killed off in this reality. But there's another level of density where there are dragons, according to my clients. And it's interesting, in people's memories, there are other continents that we don't even really talk about or know about. And there's other continent in the South Pacific that actually still has dragons on it, but it's been cloaked by a group of benevolent extraterrestrials. And so it's completely hidden from anybody, but it still has dragons on it. At least this is what I found in people's memories. Whether or not that's true or not, I don't know, but this is what they've said.
Well, I mean, there's been quite a few insiders or contactees that have talked about the royal white draco, that this is a type of dragon that is like a higher caste of a group of off-world reptilian beings called the Draco reptilians. So I wonder, this place, or where the dragons once were in the open and they were kind and wise, are we talking about another species? Are we talking about something connected to these royal white Draco that is kind of discussed quite commonly among those that are kind of cryptoid researchers?
I really don't know about that, but all I know is that there's so many levels to every being, just like the human has other versions of itself that are very humanoid, extraterrestrial, like every animal has another version of itself that, like a space tiger, there's a tiger here. There's so many different groups and beings of so many different things. But I actually have never heard in people's memories about this white dragon, so I don't know.
Okay, all right. That's more part of the kind of contemporary exopolitical literature. You talk about the Atlanteans misusing the technology, and I know that was a theme of the first book, Hypnotist Journey to Atlantis, and how they tried to master nature. So how are we doing in our civilization today? Are we kind of following the Atlantean path of like trying to master nature and just going full bore technology, or have we kind of learned a lesson and are more respectful of nature and developing a relationship like with trees and nature, the oceans and so forth?
Well, here's the thing. This is what I've been told from the higher selves, is there are different groups. Just like in people's memories of Mars, there is another version of Mars that was never destroyed. So when it's really interesting, there's still an amazing Mars that looks like Earth, that is like the Garden of Eden, so to speak. But there are groups that are really expanding their consciousness and evolving so fast that the higher selves are extremely excited about. And then there's groups within, our collective that are not doing as well. And then there's groups that are going to end in this experiment on this Earth at a particular time and taken to another Earth possibly, or just end and come back and try again better. But there's no wrong way of doing anything. But yet we are hitting a point in our evolution where we're coming back to that cycle where we were in Atlantis when we had the choice. We had a choice point, and we're hitting that point again. So many people in their subconscious memories remember being in Atlantis. Almost everyone you see here has memories of either living in Atlantis or even Lemuria. And the reason is we came back as a collective to try to move past that trauma and karma, because when civilizations are destroyed abruptly, and we're talking millions and millions of souls, there's so much karma and trauma to account for. So we all got together and we decided, let's do this again. Let's bring back so many things that will trigger us, that will trigger our memories, and let's do this differently. So a lot of us are back to do things differently, and we are. Really what we do differently is listening to ourselves, is to going inward, which was missing in a lot of these places. It's like when you have that gnawing feeling, like I shouldn't be doing this, and you choose to listen to it, and you choose to stop what you're doing that's not in alignment, you are moving past all of this karma, all of this trauma. It's just really listening to yourself and working on yourself. And that's what a lot of us are doing. And we're being asked to start to develop our relationship with nature again. Even if you just start by your own environment and starting, I know it sounds funny, but starting a relationship with, like, say, one of the trees in your environment where you live, that will have profound effects over your life, is what I've been told. When you start to develop a relationship with your natural environment, it will respond. And certain beautiful things will start happening for you. So not only will you receive messages from this tree, if you open your mind and quiet it, it will start to talk to you, because trees are very intelligent. But you will start to see that maybe a new weed starts to pop up in your area, and that will have benefits to you. It will be very tailored to you. So we're being asked to start to communicate with Earth's consciousness again.
Did any of your clients talk about massive trees, like these ancient trees, like Devil's Tower is supposed to be a stump, the petrified stump of an ancient tree, kind of like in the movie Avatar, where you had that giant tree, the tree of life, that massive tree, that the earth once had trees like that, and that whether it was the Atlanteans, but some ancient civilization destroyed them. They didn't respect nature in some way. Did you come across anything like that?
Yes, many of them. It seems that the ancient trees were able to communicate, and they would store wisdom. You know that trees actually can remember where their seed came from? It's so interesting, because in people's memories, they would talk to the tree, and the tree would tell them. And oracles would develop a relationship with trees. That's how they started, many of them, that's how they would start to receive information from the cosmos, because the tree would know this information. So what some of these people would do in these ancient cultures is they would put their back up against a tree, and they would spend a lot of time there. And then they would start to tune into the tree. So they would start to see how the tree felt when the wind would brush its leaves. And then as they tuned into this tree, it would take them years. Then they would start to see how the tree was receiving messages from the cosmos. And then after developing that type of relationship and that type of ability where they could receive these messages, they could receive so much more. And one of the things that we're actually supposed to do, or many people are doing, is reawaken trees, because trees have that ability to start to communicate with us. And some of these old trees still hold some of that ability. And if you put your hand on the tree and you understand that this tree has those abilities, sometimes that can actually reawaken the tree, and it could start communicating with you. But what's really interesting in people's memories, that they would find out the history of a place based on what the tree would tell them.
Interesting. What about the elves? I know you talk about the elves in this new book, and people, when they hear the word elves, they think of like Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, and the elves are these kind of like very mystical beings that are there to kind of help humans, but then they can wander off into some ethereal land. So what is happening? I mean, I have my pet theory, but I'd like to hear what you think. Who are the elves? What are the elves?
Well, it depends on which elves, but when my client for this book was talking about the elves, she was talking from the perspective of that they were called in her area the Twylith Teg. That's the name that she gave them there. And she considered them creator beings, actually. So they were like these beings that were sort of part of this whole creation, which is really interesting. They were benevolent beings, and they were really magical and special, and they were there to remind her of the magic that she had, because every person has magic in their being, and they can use these elements and they can do all these magical things. They just don't remember that they can.
So what is magic? I mean, is magic a good thing, a bad thing? Especially in this day and age, with religion, people freak out when you mention the word magic. So, Yeah, tell us. What?
It seems to be the fabric of our creation. It's all magic. It's all something that we innately have. We possess it. We possess this ability to create just from our thoughts even. I mean, I think we're just so suppressed in our knowledge of everything, but I think as more people start to tune inwards and start to like reconnect with the elements, so to speak, or reconnect with their internal, I don't know, internal worlds and other realms. They'll be able to use like this fabric of creation for their benefit. They could manifest, they could feel happier, they could basically do anything like all the ancients used to do and use magic. Really, it's just an ability to focus your mind and work with these elements, so to speak, is what I've heard.
So it's an ability to establish a clear intention, and to manifest that intention with your emotions, and of course to focus your emotions to match that intention, and you can achieve it. I remember reading Greg Braden's book, The Isaiah Effect, where he basically said that the way to manifest things is to just imagine what you're trying to manifest and put yourself in the state that you've achieved it, and you're celebrating having achieved that. So, if it's like you want it to rain, then you imagine it raining and you're just dancing with joy because it's just rain. So is that kind of like how magic would work?
Yeah, but my clients talk about it a step further. Many times they've just said it really helps if you want to manifest something to put yourself into a strong emotional state, a positive emotional state. So when you're doing that, it's opening up like portals of possibilities. Anytime a human has a strong emotional feeling, it's opening up these portals anyway. So if you bring about a strong, powerful emotional state like one of gratitude, then that's a great platform to manifest through, because your emotions are like gateways through this universe, and they're so incredibly powerful. So by using your emotions, it'll help you manifest. So you could do that, act as if you've already had it, but I think using the emotional state really helps manifestation as well.
Okay, so this is obviously a very controversial question, because we know that the dark ones, whatever you call them, the deep state, the Illuminati, the Cabal, they're all about limiting people. And it seems that religion is all about getting people not to believe in themselves and not to believe in their power to manifest through their emotions, through their focused intention, but to believe in some text and some God that will save you or help you if you do the right thing. So would it be fair to say that mainstream religion, that largely it's part of its design is to really limit this ability to manifest and create magic in our own lives?
That's a really good question. I don't really know too much about religion because I never grew up with religion. But what I do know is when people in their memories remember the old, well, I do think anything that limits you would be a disservice. But seems like the very old Christian ways, or the stuff that came directly from like Jesus, because he seemed to be a real person, seem to be really beautiful when they talk about it. Like the Holy Grail, where when people are drinking out of, see, I'm not religious, so I'm terrible with this, but they would drink, the blood of Christ or whatever. Well, it seems like in people's memories of Jesus, and it does seem that he was a real person, that he would drink from this Holy Grail that does seem to be a real thing, an actual artifact. And he would not drink anything. He would be drinking from the spirit. And then he would pass it around to his group. So he would have a group around him, and he would use this Holy Grail, and it would activate the group. It would create like an energetic shape, because this Holy Grail, this artifact, seemed to come from many different ancient civilizations. There's always some artifact that has to be saved from every ancient civilization. But this Holy Grail, when it was passed around with the intention of sharing in one's spirit and evolving the spirit. So they would pass it around, and it was like an energetic process of drinking in each other's spirit. It would activate like this flower of life grid system, and then it would activate them. And what they would do is they would see into the other side. And it didn't give them eternal life, but it would show them that they had eternal life on the other side. It would show them what they're really doing here. And that artifact too was taken and hidden away. But I think that's part of this whole game is, yes, there's so many groups like the deep state and all these different groups that want to limit our abilities because they want to keep us docile and they want to control the workforce. And there's so many things that people don't know that they're doing that's completely horrific that I find out in these sessions that I'm just like mind blown. Like, how come no one's stopping these things? But when I ask about them, I keep coming across that this is part of the game, that the thing that we're really supposed to understand is that we have the power to become powerful again. One of the things that's actually happening is our bloodlines are being activated. Now there's this spiritual Christ-like bloodline or genetic bloodline that comes from Christ, according to my clients' higher selves. And the people that are genetically connected, they're starting to be activated, but it's not just them. It's anybody that had a past life in any of these places. It's almost like if you've had a past life or you're living another life in these other places, that past life is just as good almost as having this actual DNA, and that's being activated and is starting to release these abilities within the person. And as people can just slow themselves down and start to recognize the power that they have, they realize that even if they're eating poison, okay, there's a lot of poison that we're eating, or we're receiving poison from the sky, or we're doing all kinds of things where we're come across poison or other things, we can bless our food and that has profound effects, or we can actually tell our bodies to heal. It's interesting because it's like every person has within them, almost like deep in their core, like a light switch. And if the light switch is on, they're becoming healthier and healthier. If for some reason it's been turned off or suppressed, then they're becoming sicker and sicker. And if we could go into meditation and turn it on, we can actually start utilizing the deep core power within us, that God-like, source-like power within us. And we can do many things to realize how powerful we are, basically.
So it seems that with a lot of your sessions, you get the clients to go through a process where sometimes they end up communicating with their higher self.
Yeah.
And they relay that information. And there's also how they you get them to connect with the stillness within. So you want to explain how people can achieve both of those states?
Oh, sure. It's really easy. You don't have to do any fancy meditation or anything. I mean, I love what I do, but you really don't even need me. It's just being quiet with yourself is what people really need to do these days. Just find some time where you can be quiet with yourself. One of the easiest ways to do this is when you wake up in the morning and you still have access to your dream. That's a very deep theta state. In that state, you can go into these different realms without the help of anybody else. You might forget these things, this information, so you might want to have a notepad by your bed. But when you're in that quiet state, when you're waking up in the morning, if you can prolong that state and just sit there and be quiet and listen and see what comes to you, you can do that. Or go into nature, because being in nature actually raises your vibration. You can use crystals. Did you know that if you're holding a crystal and you're working with a crystal, what actually happens is the crystal is working with your energetic body. The crystal in its frequency is completely harmonic. So when a human holds a crystal, it works with their energetic frequency and starts to bring them into a state of harmony. It's the same thing that happens when you're taking a walk and you pick up a rock. That rock's actually working with your energetic frequency. So you can use crystals. You can use like oils, like essential oils. They're actually extremely helpful and beneficial. You can use your house pets. Cats are really incredible. I had no idea that when a cat is sleeping next to you or purring, it's actually working on your vibration. And cats are energy manipulators that can actually manipulate and protect the energy of your home. And just by petting an animal or feeling love towards somebody else, you're raising your vibration. And this is helping you on your spiritual path. So there's so many things that you can do to like start to receive messages, basically.
So with this book, I mean, you have quite a bit of it that's focusing on Christy and her memories and how that. So you want to tell us a little bit more about Christy and her journey and how that helps us understand this journey to Avalon?
Oh, sure. So Christy had no idea she would be a part of this, and neither did I. But she saw me doing an interview and she thought I was someone she knew. And as she looked into the interview a little more, she realized she had never met me. And anyway, long story short, she ended up getting out of a series of really weird coincidences. She got a session with me, and I didn't have any sessions available, but it was just weird coincidences. And in her first session, her higher self said that I needed to release more information on this type of material, and they brought me a new Christy. So I had been working with a different Christy under hypnosis. My first client remembered a past life as Christy, and I guess I hadn't uncovered everything I needed to uncover with that. So the higher self said they brought me a new one, and they basically picked up where I left off.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Now, with this Christy that you're working with now also suffered from a brain condition.
Yes.
Now, did she have a healing?
Yes. So she did. She no longer is affected by this condition anymore. But it was interesting because her higher self said they would release the condition to the extent that we finished getting all this information. And since now we've released it, she's fine. She doesn't have any of these effects anymore. She's told me she's great now.
Great. So the information in this book then is like, that was part of her life mission.
Yes.
To reveal this information, and until she did so, the brain injury or the brain problem continued, and then seeking a solution led her to you, and she divulged everything, and now the problem is gone.
And it's interesting because usually people have issues in their bodies because they're messengers. So if you can figure out the purpose and the lesson and the message and the real reason why you have that, it acts as a teacher, and it's also leading you to the right place. And when you do those things and you've accomplished it, whatever it is, then it can be released. So there's no need for her to have it anymore.
So is there anything else from Christy's journey and what you wrote in the book that you would like to share with my audience?
Sure. So Christy, under hypnosis, remembered this life as Alice. That was her name, Alice. And she lived in the Middle Ages, and she was a woman, and she felt like she couldn't get her story out. And that's one of the things that she really wanted to do, because she said there's so many of our stories that have been forgotten by history. And there's so many stories of women that have been forgotten. And we're pretty much entering, as Alice told me, we're entering this area of rebalancing where we're rebalancing this masculine and feminine, basically. And so the voice of all these women is starting to be heard again. So when I was researching, I found Alice. I found her. She's a real person. Her name was actually Alice de Lacy. She was the Countess of Lincoln. And she lived in the Middle Ages. And she's now she's not lost anymore to history.
Right. Okay. So she was, I guess, a very talented person whose voice was just not heard because even though she was obviously royalty,
Yeah.
being a woman meant that you're to be seen but not heard.
Right. Right. Basically, yes,
Wow.
definitely.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, through her untelling of these histories really helps us all in a sense, because it helps us all realize that we can reconnect with these other aspects of ourselves, and we can reconnect with the fairies, that we can start to develop our relationship with nature again, start to use herbs and plants again, like all these ancient ways. And Alice talked a lot about these ancient trees and about this other realm of Avalon, the fairy realm, and just having awareness of this and tapping into these places is very beneficial for us all.
I see. I see. Well, I just want to kind of shift over now to more recent events. And I mean, it is December 15, and right now the United States and other parts of the world are caught at what appears to be the build-up of some drone mystery that is kind of unraveling as we speak. So what do you know about that?
Oh gosh. Well, even in my third book, Hypnotist Journey from the Trail to the Star People, the Higher Selves basically talked about this. And even on page 218 of my Hypnotist Journey to Avalon, I asked, are there any earth events that will help activate or awaken people? And they said events after the election will start to open people's eyes, because they're going to really see what's happening in our government. Essentially what I've been told, and this is just what I've been told, is I'm sure you've heard this before, that there's subsets of our government that have done reverse engineering and have access to all these very high advanced technology like these drones that are have stealth technology, and also that what they want to do, or what these groups want to do, is to create a lot of fear, because there's a lot of reason for that. Because if you have a lot of fear being created, then you can basically do whatever you want with the population. If they could create a lot of mass chaos and fear and have people worried, then they're going to put in more money to their programs. Like, they would like to have more money for their space programs. But what a lot of people aren't talking about, but my clients are talking about, is a lot. I mean, I don't know what other people are talking about, but I don't hear this on the news, so I don't know what other people talk about. But a lot of these drones actually are like weapons. So they have like laser-like technologies. They could melt cities. They could create mass destruction. And they could make it look like this is an alien invasion. But not to create too much fear or anything, if you do notice, or, this is what I've heard, is that we're being heavily watched also by benevolent extraterrestrials. And you can see them because they look like orbs. And so a lot of times you'll see them following around, monitoring the situation. Essentially, the good thing is this is supposed to open people's eyes. I mean, not only to the fact that we have reverse engineering, that there's subsets of these groups that have reverse engineered, technologies that have these weapons, have these weather weapons, have, so many different things like that. But also, more importantly, it's supposed to draw attention to this group that has been kidnapping people that are very open. So that's another way that they receive a lot of this information. So there's deep underground bases, which I'm sure you've heard about, where they take these people that actually can see how to create this technology, so they use them as well, and they can't get out of these places, according to people's higher selves. And by shining light on all of this, by seeing how ridiculous all of this is, by seeing that we don't have to keep giving our power away and falling for it over and over again. Like whatever new thing they are trying to create, or mass panic and hysteria, or whatever new thing, like put a chip in you and you'll be safe. It's all to basically control the population. We don't need any of that. We don't need that. We can tune inwards. We can start to reactivate this power within ourselves. I really don't know what other people are receiving, but that's what I've received basically about it. But yet, if you really follow your heart, if you open your heart and you listen deep to your heart, then you'll know when you need to leave a place, or you'll know if something's not good. Now, I don't wear this red cross because I'm part of the Illuminati, which I think, but when I was working through my clients, I remembered being the Knights Templar. They kept talking about the protection of a red cross, and they told me to wear one. So they told me that this is a really ancient symbol that actually comes from other realms, like the equal-armed red cross, that it really reminds you. And I think any symbol or powerful symbol or any practice you do where you feel and believe you have protection is good enough. But I believe this gives me protection because that's what I believe in my belief system. But apparently this is a very ancient symbol to remind you that it's connected, like the top part connects to the cosmos, like your top crown chakra, and the grounding part, the bottom, is the connection to this earth plane, and then the arms stretch out infinitely, and we are all like part of this source, so to speak. And it's a reminder for me, and I know that the Templars wore it for their own very specific reason, but it's a very powerful protective symbol. Ultimately, we don't really need protection. When you're very deep into meditation, you see that you are a very powerful being and you don't need protection. But whatever you believe to be true for you, works just as well.
So I just wanted to explore a little bit more, the information that you have about these drones. Now, there was a police report about 50 of these drones coming out of the water and then flying over New Jersey. So that's not conventional technology. That's not known, that kind of technology, that dual purpose, kind of like to be able to operate under the water and in the air. And, these drones have been seen to maneuver very, very quickly, and they can evade detection or any kind of electronic jamming, that they can withstand that. So it sounds as though you would agree that these are not extraterrestrial,
right?
These are some sort of reverse engineered technology built by, call it the deep state, the cabal, to frighten people.
Oh, we've had this reverse engineering technology for a while, and there seems to be, I don't know if I'm wrong or not, but this is what I receive from my, hypnosis subjects. There seems to be under the water bases. A lot of this started in World War II, according to people's memories. I even have a client that remembers being part of the experiments, and she remembers she was just a child and they took out every single one of her teeth as they used her teeth, and the pain that she went through as part of this experiment in World War II. And they were getting information from different types, from this type of extraterrestrials in my clients' memories, about how to do some of this reverse engineering. And they still have bases in Antarctica, apparently. In my clients' memories, they call it Base 211 or something like that. But yeah, I think it's all part of this big awakening, because as bleak as that sounds, like if they really do have this kind of technology, is to just basically not fall for whatever new product they're going to start to send everybody. And some of my clients talk about like war, not really like super controversial, but as being a blood sacrifice. I mean, I'm sorry, this is what they say. I'm just repeating what they say.
What will be a blood sacrifice?
War for these dark players. It's really interesting what I come across. Whether or not this stuff is true or not, I don't know.
So on that theme, I mean, there's what's very popular at the moment is this Cliff High. He said that there was a kind of temporal marker, which was the Joe Rogan and Donald Trump interview, and that 39 days after that interview, that according to his analysis of the kind of information he deduces from these kinds of web bots activity in the internet, that you would have these drones appearing or these UFOs appearing, and that eventually there would be a melee or like battles. And where we're kind of moving towards that, because there's already now members of Congress, even President Trump has said, well, if they don't know what they are, shoot them down.
Actually, I don't know there's always that what if what I've been told is not true. This is just what I've been told is it doesn't seem to be like a very good thing. But my clients have also said, to just not give your power away. So that's the most important. Don't give your power away. Follow and listen deeply to your heart. Don't be in any if you're in the wrong place, you'll get alerted, and to move out of that place. Hopefully this doesn't happen, but there may be something that looks like some sort of a strike, or an event.
Right.
Hopefully that doesn't happen, because everything is always a potential. More people that know about it could really protect people, because then they would think, okay, I don't want this to happen. And then they will start to think, okay, how can I empower myself and think other thoughts? Really, it's just a collective awakening. What's really happening, according to my clients' higher selves, is that we're supposed to see that we have been lied to. That there's all this technology, that it's all been hidden, that we already have free energy, we already have the technology to heal ourselves. Extraterrestrials are real. They've been working with our government for so long. I mean, people's memories remember. You can't hide that. And these bases are still there because in clients' memories, they are there. And there's horrible things that they're doing to people. Like even when companies are creating a chemical, they create a byproduct or produces a byproduct. And at times they were trying to dump this into our ocean, but it was killing the life. So what did they do? They decided to spray it in the air. And that's what's actually causing a lot of infertility and a lot of skin issues. But again, there's a purpose to that, because the grander scheme of things is that we can heal ourselves. And so everything is like a reflection. So if you are somebody that has skin issues, there's a positive and benefit to everything. So skin issues often are opening up to release toxins or opening up to release emotions. It's just like the earth when there's a volcano eruption. The earth itself is releasing emotions. So there are benefits to every negative thing that they try to do to us. There's a benefit to all of this because so many of us are waking up. I don't know if you've received differently information. I don't know.
But just to clarify, so there's no confusion here, when you say shoot them down, you're talking about the craft that are coming from the deep underground military bases. We're not talking about the extraterrestrial craft. I mean, that's a different thing altogether.
The extraterrestrial craft general looks different, because you'll see these orbs and you'll see these like lights in the sky that don't look like a man-made light. And those are very highly advanced, because we're still babies in reverse engineering.
Very true. So where do people go if they want to find out more about you, upcoming activities and your books?
You can go to my website, theholistichuhypnotist.com, and I have Egypt trips twice a year. You can find out about that on my website. And because I'm so booked up in my sessions, and I basically hardly ever have a session available, I'm doing these 3-day workshops right now, which I absolutely love. They're so amazing. But you can find them on my website, theholistichuhypnotist.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Sarah, for coming on Exopolitics today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
You have been listening to Exopolitics today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.